Okay, in this system, as you can see on the screen, I'm going to be taking notes on an article. Now, I know in Word you can also take notes as comments, but those can't be seen all the time. I wanted to make sure it could be easily seen. And you can see I have 3 different colors of boxes on top. You might call this the 3 P's system for taking notes. I'm going to be taking certain notes that are just simply points of knowledge. Oh, I learned something here. It's a new piece of knowledge for me, piece of information. Then we have points of integration, where I put 2 pieces of information together. This is kind of the bigger picture of what I'm reading. And then we have points of prediction. And here we're going to try to predict what the author is going to tell us. This is a very powerful tool, prediction, because once you make a prediction, whether it's right or it's wrong, you learn better, you understand better what the author is trying to say. Also along the way, I may ask a question and say, I don't know what this means. I wonder what it means. Okay? The first thing you do whenever you get to an article is you read the title. So here, of course, the title tells us Technophobia, Fear of Technology. I'm not quite sure what the word technophobia means. Fear of technology I can understand. There's always someone who's afraid of new technology. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the whole article, just thumb through it. I'm not going to read very much. I see number 1 is, why is it important? It's a subtitle. And then as I go further down, I see that there is a list of examples. And then things to keep an eye on. I guess they're predicting for the future. So now I have an understanding of how the article is laid out. In many, many articles, the first paragraph is the most important one. As I'm sure you know, in a scientific article, the first paragraph is often the abstract, and the abstract gives us the whole story. It's kind of like telling you the punchline of a joke before you say the joke. It gives you the whole story, including all the results and what they understand from it. This is not a scientific article, but still, the first paragraph is often very important. I'm going to read the whole first paragraph out loud, then I'm going to go back and I'm going to understand it and write my notes. Although new technology intrigues us and makes us curious about what can be achieved with it, the flip side of the human reaction to anything new is suspicion and even fear. Technophobia means fear of technology, and it can stem, for example, from not fully understanding how something works, possibility of danger and negative impacts, or risk of malicious misuse. Another flavor of technophobia is anxiety over our personal competences to deal with the new technologies, and the downright possibility of social exclusion if we lack the access or skills to adopt them. Wow, that's a very interesting paragraph. It's got a lot of information. Let's go through it. So the first thing we read is that new technology intrigues us and makes us curious. The flip side of the human reaction is anything new, suspicion, and even fear. So this tells me people like and fear new things. That's the first thing that I learned. Technophobia means fear of technology. So this I'm going to highlight because this is a definition of what we saw in the title. It tells me exactly what technophobia means. It's a fear of technology. So now if I have to go back later and write my summary of this article, I know exactly where to find the definition. It says it right on the side, and it's highlighted. Technophobia means fear of technology and can stem, for example, from not fully understanding how something works, possibility of danger and negative impacts, or risk of malicious misuse. Another flavor of technology is anxiety over our personal competences to deal with new technologies and the downright possibility of social exclusion if we lack the access or skills to adopt them. So this gives me a bunch of examples of what people are afraid of. By the way, something I forgot to mention, when you're writing these notes, feel free to write them in your first language. Hebrew, Arabic, Russian, Amharic, whatever your first language is. Because these notes are really for you to help you understand. Your notes do not have to be in English. They can be in any language that you like to write notes in. The next section is called Why is this important? And here I want to predict, I'm going to take a guess why it's important. Okay? So I'm guessing, and maybe I'm right and maybe I'm wrong, that it's important because we want people to use the new technologies. And if people are afraid of them, they're not going to use them. And then, what's it all worth? So that's my prediction. I wonder if I'm right. Only one way to find out, and that's to read more and see if I'm right or if I'm wrong. Why is this important? Some of the technology fears connected to the platform economy have been around for a long time, and they apply to pretty much any technologies linked to machines and computing. The archetype of such concerns is the fear of losing our jobs because of automation, something that has been a worry for well over a century. So if I look back at this paragraph, I don't know what this word platform economy means. I'm going to have to make sure to understand that. So I'm going to highlight it for myself, and I'm going to write myself another note, and here, I seem to have made a mistake and used that note, so I'm going to have to recreate it. Okay, so I want to know what platform economy is. So what do the fears stem from? So one fear is that people are afraid they're going to lose their jobs. Okay, so that's one fear. Another major concern in the context of platform economy, oh, there's that word again that I still don't understand. This might get important. Another major concern in the context of platform economy is how the disruption to economy will impact us as individuals, for example, moving from a regulated labor market to the gig economy, as businesses, for example, smaller companies being bulldozed by large platform corporations, or as society, for example, governments trying to keep up with regulation, legislation, and fiscal needs related to the platforms. So here what I'm seeing is that there's three different areas of concern. There's the personal, or as individuals. There's the businesses, and there's society. Okay, so there's three different levels of concern, and that's also why it's important, because it affects us at different levels. Now I did notice here it says large platform corporations, talking about businesses. And I wonder if that's, like for example, Amazon is a platform for other people to sell their stuff. Or Uber is a platform for people to become cab drivers. Or Walt is a platform for people to deliver from restaurants. So into the platform economy is where one corporation lets a lot of other people come in and do something. So this might be the definition. Fears do not either escape the indirect risks and negative impacts that may arise with platformatization, such as loss of knowledge and survival mechanisms, if digitalized assets are destroyed, or if there's a prolonged power cut. Intentional misuse and criminal activity is also a scare experienced by many. And evolving platform configurations may indeed be extremely vulnerable. So here's another reason to be fearful. I guess these are more, both individual and societal. So what's the fear here? So here the fear is if the computer files are destroyed, or if there's a prolonged power cut, or misuse or criminal activity. So another fear is if files or digital things, well, I'm not quite sure what to call it, I'll just call it files because that's what I call it. So another fear is if files are stolen or misused or lost, or we can't get to them because there's a power loss. This is another reason for the fear. And here we have examples of specific fears. What I would like you to do now is, in a moment, I want you to pause the video and I want you to read the list. And obviously you're not going to take notes on the whole list, but I want to see if you can find some categories of different kinds of fears. So please pause the video, read the list, and find categories of fears. Okay, welcome back. I hope that you paused the video and you found some categories of fears. First, let's read the list. Examples of fears include fear of technology eliminating jobs and the need for human workers, fear of technology taking over human, individual, or society, fears related to privacy and cybersecurity, fears of losing control and getting lost in the technology mesh, fears of not learning the skills, not having the access to use the technology, fear of dependence and not surviving without the technology, for example, in case of a power cut, fear of negative social and societal impacts, for example, lack of face-to-face interaction, fears related to fast and vast information flows, for example, validity of news, fears of government not having the means to monitor and control malicious and criminal activity related to the new technologies. So I'm not quite sure what you found here, but when I look at this, I see that there's, first of all, here it says losing control. And here it says technology taking over. So I'm going to say that one fear is losing control. I think that's one of the categories of fears here. Dependence and not learning the skills mean, basically I would put those together is that I can't understand it. So fear of not understanding is another fear that people have. And I wonder here if dependence, being too dependent on technology. So here we've taken a list and we've kind of put it together into certain fears that people have, certain categories of fears that people have. Things to keep an eye on. So I'm guessing here that I want to, before I read it, I want to make a prediction of what I think they're going to tell us to keep an eye on. So I predicted at the beginning that one of the big problems might be that if people are afraid, they're not going to use the technology. So maybe we should keep an eye on how many people actually use the technology. Okay? The important thing is to try to understand the root causes of fear and technology in the context of platform economy, regardless of whether the threats are real or perceived. Also, it should be noted that technophobia may influence not only consumers, but businesses and policymakers alike. Through addressing technology-related concerns appropriately, we can ensure that individuals as well as companies and other organizations have the courage to make the best of the platform economy opportunities. On the other hand, the assessment of fear helps us to pinpoint risks and vulnerabilities that need to be fixed in technological, regulatory, and other terms. To dispel mistrust, impartial and validated information to support technology proficiency and awareness is needed. Similarly important are also investments in, for example, digital security and technology impact assessment. So what did we learn here? So one of the things that we learned here is that technophobia influences everybody. So one of the things we should keep our eye on is how people are reacting. And here it says, on the other hand, that assessment of fear helps us pinpoint risks and vulnerabilities. And digital security. So now, if I go back, I have all of the notes. I can go through the article very quickly. And in the next thing, where I'm looking for the main idea and the supporting points, all of those should be in my notes on the sides. And that's what I'll be teaching you in the next video.